everyone to Mort's Garage. I'm here at Retro Games Plus. Kris, what store are we at right now?
We're at Retro Games Plus.
I said that already. Let me start that over.
You don't know what you're talking about, do you?
This is a special episode because we're not in the garage. We're in a store. Sure. And we're here also with Ben, Mr. Retro Escape. Introduce yourself to everybody.
I'm a fellow retro nerd, just like everybody else here.
So Kris, my buddy, not this Kris, but another Kris, showed up to my garage and he brought over a massive collection of stuff, and in it is a bunch of NeoGeo stuff. And by a bunch, I mean these two games right here, Blues Journey and Nam 1975, two AES carts. Before we get into the nuances of this, Ben messaged me and said, hey, there's something that you should know about these carts, and that is that a lot of them end up becoming reproduced, which I had no knowledge about. Give some people the context around NeoGeo in general and AES versus MVS, would you?
So the NeoGeo came out in, I believe it was 1990. It first actually came out in the arcades, so it was an arcade cabinet. Going from the success of all the arcades at the time, that's where SNK started. And then they eventually decided to do the home console, which is the AES. The way I understand it, this actually originally was supposed to be just a rental. So they made them just for stores to be rented out to consumers, but eventually they sold it on the shelves.
And then you have these different cartridges. Do the cartridges between an MVS and an AES look very different from one another?
They look similar, somewhat different. The MVS cartridges are bigger.
Okay.
And the boards are a little bit different size on the inside.
Okay. Now, I wanted Kris here because, Kris, as a retro game store owner, how often do you come across people having AES or MVS or any of that kind of stuff?
Very rarely. I mean, I could probably count on one hand the number of times that AES carts have actually walked into the store before. And nothing ever really that rare. I want to say Magician Lord has come in, Ben helped me out, the Ghosts.
Ghost Pilot?
Ghost Pilot has come in. It might only be those two.
Okay.
And that's in 12 years.
In 12 years?
Two AES games, I want to say ever. MVS carts have gotten traded in, not very much recently, but we have taken more MVS carts, and we do sell MVS carts in the store. I haven't seen them in years, though. At least traded in. The game's probably the least traded in of anything other than maybe AES, then Turbo.
This is in Japanese. Isn't there something about Japanese games and English consoles? Like, is there any region issues, or I heard there's a translation, something that they do?
Yeah, so what SNK did with these NeoGeo carts, and this is both for AES and MVS, is that they put all regions of the game on the same cartridge. So it's only a matter of difference with the labels at that point. And the way that each region is unlocked, it matters on your console. Okay? So if you take a US game and you run it on a Japanese console, that game will boot as a Japanese game.
Ben, you were saying a lot of people reproduce these. We are going to verify that today, but tell us a little bit about like reproducing NeoGeo games. I feel like that's crazy.
Just the value of some of these AES games, they're just so skyrocket high that people have figured out the injection molding process for the actual plastic. They figured out how to get the PCBs to accept the game, and then the actual labels on the cartridge themselves.
I wonder what the actual price of a MVS cart was back in the day. I honestly don't know.
Yeah.
That was kind of like information that was shared with the arcade owners, what they paid for them. Maybe you know.
So that's an interesting point, because now the AES carts are crazy expensive, but back then it was the MVS carts. That's why SNK made the sizes different. So an arcade operator couldn't just go to Kmart or wherever and buy an AES cart and stick it in their machine.
Kris was mentioning earlier today that the MVS has quite a history of repros as well.
I want to say that probably from what I've seen, about 50% of the MVS, which is the
50%.
I want to guess about 50%.
Wow.
Is bootlegs. Any experience with it?
It's high. It's definitely high, and it's not necessarily for a higher resale value. I mean, think about it. You're an arcade owner.
Right.
You just want games to work so you can bring in those quarters.
Yeah, you're not thinking collector.
From what I've seen, they look just like MVS carts. They're really good bootlegs. You do have to open them up to look at the boards to verify. The labeling was very minimal on the MVS carts, so they were easily bootleggable.
Yeah, more easily.
Many of the carts, I own many MVS carts. A fair amount of them are bootlegs.
Yeah.
They still have value.
Yeah.
They were sold back in the 90s. They're like 90s bootlegs.
They don't bootleg them like they used to.
They don't bootleg them like they used to.
True.
They were high quality bootlegs. They do still have value. Maybe not for like a pure collector, like I think you said
Right.
you were looking for some
Correct.
MVS stuff, you probably want.
I don't want it for my
hardware.
collection, but
For myself, like looking for certain games
Yeah.
for the arcade machine,
Yeah.
I was actually okay. I'm like, all right, the bootleg
you
is
have-
like half the cost. I'll buy the bootleg.
And you actually have the arcade machine though.
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had many NeoGeo arcades over the years. I like to play them. We put them in the store.
Yeah.
If there was a really expensive game and the bootleg was half the price, I might buy the bootleg.
What's the top end NeoGeo single cartridge game?
So Metal Slug 1 US edition for AES, I want to say goes for like $40,000.
$40,000.
40,000, yeah.
Are either of those games $40,000?
I don't think so. Another thing I'll mention is we're talking a lot about reproduction, but it's also something called conversion. Okay.
Okay.
So what happens is, like, let's say you have a version of AES game that's really expensive, but for the MVS it was like really cheap. There's guys that they unsolder the chips from the MVS carts, and they take a donor AES board. They do what it takes just to get the game working, just so it'll play the more expensive copy, and then they go and they sell it for the higher amount.
There was a period of time, I want to say probably like 8 to 10 years ago, where MVS carts were dirt cheap, 30 to 50 bucks. Everything was under 100 bucks. Maybe
Wow.
there was a couple titles that were more than that.
Yeah.
They have since in the last, I want to say 4 or 5 years, the
Wow.
MVS market has increased where those values have gone up. There are quite a few rarer MVS carts now.
Oh, yeah.
Like Twinkle Star Sprites is one that I have, which is a pretty pricey cart now.
So interesting, because when we showed the video of appraising Chris's collection, you know, he brings this stuff in and he's like, I just had this stuff in my home, I got it at the swap meet, he doesn't know. But the reality is other people who have, my uncle owned an arcade and you know, he has this stuff stashed away somewhere. For all we know, those could be bootlegs, and it's just your due diligence you have to do to figure out if what you have is authentic. Particularly in today's market where these aren't just arcade owners buying these are collectors who everything is based on authenticity, and that takes a little bit extra work. So I'm glad we could learn all this stuff today.
It is, but I actually am somewhat okay with the bootlegs.
Okay, in this
myself.
case?
You just want the game to run.
Correct.
Yeah, and for me, the MVS absolutely has to be genuine as a collector.
What we are going to do is we are going to open up these two cartridges. We've already kind of cracked them open a little bit. You have to be really careful when you do this because there's delicate pieces inside. We're going to compare the board images to what is online on this website. What's the website that we're looking at?
That's arcade-collector.com.
Awesome. So if you're looking to do this for yourself as well, check there. And then also, you need to check on the boards where the plastic pieces are too. It's not just something like an NES cartridge where you just unscrew it and it just easily pulls apart. You have to be, these are delicate. So let's take a look at Blue's Journey and check out the boards and compare them to the originals and see, do we have an authentic AES game?
Sounds good.
Let's do it.
So we got this one cracked already, so we'll do this one.
Okay.
And now the thing to remember here is that because this label at the top covers both pieces of plastic, you don't want to peel it up too much.
Right, you'll crease it.
Yeah, because then you'll crease this and like probably devalue the game a little bit.
Okay.
So you just open it up enough to get the game boards out, and then boop, there they are right there.
All right.
There are two boards.
Let's take
One's
the
a
two
program
boards.
board.
So I'm
and
going
the
to
other
hold
one's-
these like this.
Yep.
So this, you said one of these is a program board and the
Yep.
other one is what?
The other one's I think the AV or just the video or something like that.
I'm already feeling good about this because we have the SNK
Yes.
sign on here.
Yep.
But you were saying earlier that people will take original boards and solder around them. So that's,
Yeah, so what they might do is that's why you have to kind of look at the chip work and see if those are original, because they may take a game that's expensive for AES but cheap for MVS, and they steal the IC
pieces.
chips from the MVS.
Okay, so we
and
don't
then
wanna-
they solder them into the board for the AES.
Okay, so far this is a good sign. Let's keep going through this.
Yep.
And
Okay.
let's look at the boards and see if we've got a match here.
Yeah. They look good because the PCB lines up with the IC chips.
Yep.
The counts and the quantities.
You have the 4 big ones here with the 5th at the top.
Yep.
We have to be really careful when we put these back into because they slide in with really specific indentations as well.
This bad boy.
Okay. How many
Okay.
pieces were here that you had to open on these?
So there's 3 tabs on each side. So 2 here, 2 on the lower sides, and 2 on the higher sides.
6 total. Okay.
6 total.
All right. Now let's
All
open
right.
this board up. Very good. I'll hold it again if you want to grab it on the website. Okay, here's board number 1. Also says SNK at the bottom. That's encouraging.
Yeah, so these 2 line up here. Got the shorter ones, nothing in this region.
6.
And then you got the long ones here for that board.
I think
So,
we got 2 authentic
this one's good, bro.
original AESs. That's awesome.
It's NeoGeo certified.
Oh,
Gonna have to come in. So far everything looked good, but I just want to double check this works. So I just want to take a quick look before
Yeah.
After you, sir.
Oh, definitely a bootleg.
both of the games have been put back together. They've been verified as authentic. Let's test them out now on the AES and make sure that they work. Here we go. Ooh, look at that. You got to go past the title screen.
Here we go.
There we go. Nom 1975. Ben, do the honors.
Boots up.
You didn't
so
even have
far.
to blow in the cartridge. Both of these games are working and authentic. Ben, thank you so much. I
sir.
appreciate it. Gentlemen, how do we feel about our experience today verifying and checking out these NeoGeo games?
It was fun and very informational.
Let's say that again.
I'm happy that you have valid, genuine SNK boards inside.
Me too.
I thought it was awesome. I learned about the BIOS of the American English
And I'm not
versus the
certified.
Japanese. I am certified, but you learn something new every day.
Kris, we want to thank you very much. I know that it's the middle of the day here as we're shooting this, and Kris generously let us shoot here at the store. Make sure to check out Kris's store online at Retro Games Plus. You can see them on Instagram, Facebook, and anywhere else people are doing social media these days. Make sure if you haven't seen it yet, the full video of me appraising my other buddy Kris's collection where he brought these and a bunch of other just crazy awesome Game Boy Advance games. Thank you all for joining us. Have yourself a wonderful rest of your day. Goodbye.
I'm into video games.